Welcome to FXpert Trading, where I use time cycles and median lines to identify potential trading opportunities in the US markets as well as the foreign exchange markets. So we're currently looking at the E-mini futures on the 3-hour chart. I have some time cycles on here as well as the 8 FLD. I'm going to zoom out for a moment. I did not make a video last weekend because I was traveling. So the last video I made was 2 weeks ago, where I mentioned I was using this shorter term orange cycle to try to identify a trough that may be the bottom for this longer term blue cycle. I mentioned I had sold some puts here with a longer term expiration because this blue cycle could extend another orange cycle. Really, it could extend another 2 orange cycles, but it usually doesn't extend that far. Anyways, I mentioned we would get confirmation that the blue cycle trough is in if the next cycle bottom for this next orange cycle was a higher low. And we got that. So the low is in here, and this was a tradable bottom. How was it tradable? Using the exact same method I did to identify the bottom in usdjpy 2 weeks ago. Again, this is the 3-hour chart, just like I talked about with usdjpy. The 8 FLD, just like I talked about with usdjpy. We get the clear price action below, followed by a cross above within a reasonable amount of time of the expected trough. The cross and close above the 8 FLD happened outside of market hours. So as soon as the market opened, I entered longs here. Another way you could have confirmed is you could have waited. These are daily cycles, these shorter cycles here. You could have waited for a higher trough in exactly the same fashion as we're using to identify this trough. You go the next cycle lower. Actually, this is a couple cycles lower, but you go use a lower cycle when it finally makes a higher low after making lower lows. You can, with a reasonable amount of certainty, say it's very likely that the longer term, in this case now the orange cycle bottom, is in, and you could enter there. However, I live in Asia. I wasn't going to wait until this would be 1 o'clock in the morning for me, and then by the time you finally get that confirmation, it's around 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not staying up that late. So I entered using the cross and close above the 8 FLD on the 3-hour time frame, which meant as soon as the market opened. Those longs are deep in the money now. I have taken some profit already for over 100% on some SPY calls. I'm also still holding the puts that I sold over here. With that said, this is PG, where I took a loss and ultimately ended up re-entering the position. I'm going to unhide the drawing tools here. It's going to look like a bit of a mess. I'll take the 8 FLD off. So I had been using this median line set here with the yellow upper warning line. I mentioned in the video, after we got rejection from here, I would open puts. I did right at the open here, and as you can see, that went against me right away. I didn't close on the first day. I closed on the second day, and I lost about 45% on those puts. I put on the modified SHIF, which I have mentioned, or I mentioned in the last video. I like to use for the longer term time frames, and it seems as if we may be respecting this instead. So I actually reopened some puts, and with the same expectation that we may come down here. I think this is less likely now, but we should return to this median line. We've already satisfied this, but we've come back up to the upper warning line. We've rejected it. We're still expecting negative cycle movements into this pink and also this, I don't know what color you call this, maroon, longer term maroon cycle down here. So while the SPY and SPX trades have worked out well, PG has not. Okay, we're back to the USDJPY chart on the 3-hour time frame. I'll unhide the drawing tools. You can see the time cycles. I put the FLD back on here, and 2 weeks ago, it was somewhere around here, I mentioned I wanted to see clear price action below the 8 FLD and then across above. We got that. I was actually happy to see this particular orange cycle extend, because if it just spikes below and then crosses back above, I'm not going to take that trade. I want to see clear price acceptance, price, I don't know exactly what you want to call it. I just want to see clear price action below before we get the cross. We got exactly that. And as I had mentioned in that video, I would take half off at 2 to 1 and half off targeting this median line up here, which we did reach. I took profits. I closed the second half prior to reaching this, but it was a little more than 3 to 1, and the other half was at 2 to 1. So for roughly 2.5 to 1 on the whole position. So that worked out well. As you can see, we are expecting another trough. However, we're starting to get choppy here, and I'm going to talk about this a little more in a minute on another chart, but when it gets choppy towards the trough, I try to stay away from it, because again, I'm looking for clear price action below that FLD. I want to see a nice clear pullback before we get continuation, not so much the chop. That can present some difficult entries where you get stopped out either by wicks or just general choppy price action. The only FX trade I entered last week was eurjpy, and I think this will be a good thing to show as well here. So the first cycle, again, I trade these orange cycles. The first cycle was a little unclear. Maybe this was the trough, maybe this was the trough. This is very early. Even this is early, but this is acceptable. And then we had a late trough. Had you taken any of those trades, they would have worked out fine. I did not enter them because they are not as ideal as I would like them to be. So rather than take those, you take trades elsewhere, or you just stay patient. I stayed patient here. Then we finally did get a trough, which lined up pretty well. And we had, again, that clear price action below, followed by the move above. Now, I was traveling last weekend, and I got back on Monday evening. I live in Asia, so it would be Monday morning in the U.S., so I didn't get the ideal entry. It would have been entering at the close of this green candle right here. But I kind of got back late. I entered as soon as I got home. I looked at the charts and entered on this candle. I did not take half off at 2 to 1. This whole thing is about 2.25 to 1. So I'm just leaving it all on for that. I'm expecting us to come up to this median line up here. Which, as you can see, if we zoom out, as you can see, is based on the blue cycle here for the median line set. There aren't any FX pairs that look particularly appetizing this week. However, the dollar is strong at the moment, so I do want to look for something in the dollar. As I mentioned, this is starting to look choppy, which does not make for the best entries in my opinion. So unless we get some clear price action below into the trough before we get the cross, I'm probably staying away from usdjpy. This is the USD CAD. This is a good example of the choppiness I was talking about before, where as you approach the end of a cycle, an orange cycle here, when it's choppy rather than giving you a clear pullback, there are a lot of opportunities for you to get stopped out. If you had entered here and your stop was here, you would be okay, but as I mentioned in my last video, I like to go down to some lower time frames and try to find some structure to kind of move my stop up a little bit. I don't want to put it all the way at the bottom. Sometimes you have to, but usually I want to avoid that. So me personally, I probably would have had a stop here, and then I would have been stopped out over here. And the same is true here. If I hadn't entered here, but then I entered here, well, I probably would have been stopped out over here. And that's 2 stops. And when you're only looking sometimes for 2 to 1, if you have 2 wrong trades, that's okay if you can hit it on the 3rd time, but missing on it 3 times hurts. So you want to see that clear price action below, usually a little more separation than this, and then the move above. And you want that after good price action up, not this choppy sideways action. I don't like trading that. So moving forward, unless if we can get a good bounce up early and then come back below the 8 FLD before moving up, I'm probably not going to trade the USD CAD. This looks like it's moving down pretty quick, a little early here for me. So that leaves us with the USD SHIF. This is usually my least preferred pair out of usdjpy, USD CAD, and USD SHIF. But you can see we did get the choppy price action like the USD CAD, but we're not selling off in the same way, which leads me to believe this is still a little more bullish than USD CAD. So this is going into Thursday or Friday, this potential trough. It can come earlier, it can come later. But what I'd like to see is just like we did with the usdjpy, the eurojpy, and actually on the E-minis as well, you just get that a nice clean pullback, clear price action below the FLD, and then somewhere in the area of the expected trough, then you get the cross above. And then on the close, if the first candle is not, if it's very weak, if it's like a doji, you might wait for another candle. But if you get a nice green candle that closes above the 8 FLD on the 3-hour time frame, that's a good time to enter, in my opinion, and that's what I'll do. But of course, this is all just for educational purposes. This is not financial advice. So to give a quick recap of what I'm looking for this week is I'd like to see maybe a small pullback on Monday or Tuesday, ideally earlier in the week for the S&P, and I can maybe put on a few more shorter term puts, just looking for small continuation after that pullback, and I'll probably close those pretty quickly. And then I'll be watching USD SHIF carefully. Other than that, nothing looks great in my opinion at this time in the FX markets. The only other pair that looks okay, I think, or decent, would be the eurojpy. If it pulls back, we get that clear price action and cross above. But because I'm already in it, I'm not going to add to it again. I'll be patient, and I'll wait for other opportunities elsewhere. Okay, if you found any of the information in this video useful or interesting and you'd like to learn more about this, I plan on doing at least one video per week, and I'm going to start to put out a little bit of more educational type content. So please subscribe, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching.